What's going on, everyone? BouseFeenux here, and after the recent news of the soon-to-arrive patch 1.06 that we covered in the previous video, there's been a lot of speculation on what tier the game's characters will end up in. Now, there's a really good discussion going on surrounding this topic on the competitive For Honor subreddit, and to quickly clarify, this is a different subreddit from the normal For Honor subreddit. I stumbled upon this topic and thought that for speculation and entertainment's sake, it'd be interesting to talk about that today. Also, before we get started, I want to let you guys know that I do now have a Discord server for us all to hang out in. You guys have been asking for that for a long time, so you can join that by clicking the link in the description below. Anyway, for me personally, I definitely want to start by saying that I don't really know if I agree with tier rankings in a game like this. The cast of characters is really small in For Honor, and player skill makes a big difference in how a character performs against different matchups. On top of that, there are various bug exploits and so on that certain characters can abuse that would elevate them from an otherwise lower tier based on that alone. Which is why, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to factor in those exploits when talking about the ranking of a character. I'm just gonna go with their intended movesets. Additionally, this kind of ranking is also difficult to discern because there are a bunch of other factors to consider. There's obviously player skill, which we've already mentioned, then you've got game mode type, and something I don't think people consider often, you've also got to take a look at what platform the character is being played on. There are certain characters on console that are considered OP that aren't as much of a problem on PC and kind of vice versa. So with all of that taken into consideration, I'm just going to do a general overall baseline ranking. This is all my opinion, and it's subject to massive criticism. There is no way any of us could do this accurately without hard data and win rates, and even then it's subjective. What I'm trying to say here is that this is 100% just for shits and giggles. And remember, we don't even have patch 1.06 yet. Everything here is being based off paper changes, so don't take anything I say here too seriously. With that being said though, don't be shy in the comments section. Leave your own tier ranking and thoughts down below. I'd also love to get a discussion started on this. Just don't forget to leave what platform you play on when you do this, so it gives us a little bit more perspective. So let's jump right into it. Going from top to bottom, I want to start first with the S tier ranking. These are the cream of the crop, the best of the best. Even the most inexperienced player would be at an advantage choosing these characters in general play. In S tier, I definitely place Warlord and Peacekeeper. I definitely feel that Warlord deserves this S tier ranking due to the sheer amount of tools at his disposal. Superior block, hyper armor on heavies, headbutt unblockable with guaranteed follow-up damage to open up turtles, an extremely powerful guard break throw, as well as fast lights, top heavies, and zone attacks, all work to make him one of the most powerful characters in the game. He's consistently performed well in the tournament scene and just in casual play, and with no changes coming to him in the foreseeable future, I think he's going to continue to sit at this ranking in patch 1.06. For the Peacekeeper, it's pretty much undeniable that she's got basically the fastest light attacks in the game, and so far, that's really been all she needs. If that doesn't do it though, her punish game is extremely strong with the ability to apply bleed on guard break and after any confirmed heavy attack. Now, she is receiving significant nerfs in the upcoming 1.06 patch, but only to her second attack in her chain. Her zone attack is still extremely viable, and on top of that, she's still got a light-heavy combo, where the heavy can be feinted and the chain can start again, allowing for some pretty terrifying mind games. I feel like the upcoming patch is going to weaken her a good deal, but it still won't be enough to take her out of S tier. We'll see though, this one is definitely up for debate. Moving on to A tier though, these are characters that I feel are still very strong, and while not as powerful as their S tier counterparts, a fairly inexperienced player would be able to pick up these characters and have a good deal of success playing with them. In A tier, I'm placing Valkyrie, Shigoki, Lawbringer, and Warden. Valkyrie, for me, was a natural choice to throw into A tier. A lot of people complain about her, but a lot of people also say that she is one of the most balanced characters in the game. I don't know how far you want to read into that, but She's got decent defensive options, quick light attacks, a handful of mix-up options, and a few openers like shield tackle and shield bash that are high risk, high reward. Now, I know on console she's about as hated as PK, but on PC at high level, she's counterable if you play smart, and a good player can definitely do a lot of damage with her. Shigoki, our second A tier character, was actually a pretty tough placement for me. After this patch, I'm unsure if he's going to be a high B tier or a low A tier at the moment. Really though, the only thing getting nerfed in this upcoming patch is his Oni charge. Without that, I feel like he's still a force to be reckoned with. He's got a large health pool, hyper armor, and idle, and is able to dole out extreme punishment to players that make big mistakes. His out of stamina punishment game is extreme, and if you mess up, he's able to take half your health with a single hit. Not to mention that if he gets you with a wall splat, he can one-shot you with Demon's Embrace if he's at critical health and heal himself from it regardless of that. No other character in the game has something like that. The Lawbringer is the third character we'll take a look at for A tier. With his recent buffs, he's definitely a monster, but he's gonna be even more so after patch 1.06. Having a 50-50 from block, a quick top light, decent health pool, and decent parry mix-up punish is gonna be kinda hard to deal with. Piloting Lawbringer is still going to be tough even after the patch, but in the hands of a decent player, he's going to be a challenging matchup for anyone. Now, depending on who you talk to, putting Warden in A tier is a little controversial right now. With the coming patch, his shoulder bash mechanic is getting a pretty significant nerf. However, I think that in the face of that, Warden is still going to be a really strong character. I know from experience that even without using shoulder bash, people still destroy with Warden. He's got one of the fastest zone attacks in the game, and you can't really react to it. In order to punish it, you pretty much have to guess. Add to that his extremely fast top light and his crushing counter-strike, and he's basically a better version of Kinsei. And besides, I don't think his shoulder bash will be as useless as everyone thinks it will be. Clever players always find a way to make certain things viable. We'll just have to see how he plays out with the update. Moving on to B tier though, these are characters that take a little more time than A or S tier characters to master and play effectively. In order to be successful with these guys, you've got to be very good mechanically at the game. Needless to say, new players would be at a slight disadvantage when choosing these guys. In B tier, we've got Raider, Kinsei, Nobushi, and Orochi. The Raider, like a lot of characters on this list, is kind of a mixed bag of tricks. I wasn't really sure where to put him because, at least for me personally, I've seen the average Raider player and some supremely legendary ones. And actually, in the 2v2 tournament I commentated on, a Raider almost took home the championship. He's got a decent unblockable that allows for some fairly creative mix-ups, and his feint game is really strong. I've noticed that creative Raider players with good reflexes are pretty monstrous and are able to adapt to a lot of different situations. He's also got great options for opponents who don't watch their stamina. Now, there are two camps of people, some that don't believe he needs a buff and some that do. If he were to receive one, I'm not really sure what it would be. That being said though, if there's a shift anytime soon in the defensive meta, or he gets some kind of rework, I could easily see this character rapidly rise through the tiers. Next up though is my current main, the Kinsei. Some people think he's OP, some people think he's a joke. I think in the right hands, he's pretty powerful. I've put about 60 or 70 hours into this character, and what I can tell you is that against good players, every fight with Kinsei is definitely an uphill battle. Pretty much everything he does is reactable, and if you're fast enough, you can pretty much counter and heavily punish anything a Kinsei throws at you. He was recently buffed in the last patch, but he's not receiving anything in 1.06, so I'm not sure that his ranking is going to change anytime soon. If you're playing Kinsei, your mind games and your reflexes have to be on point because to even get to your mix-ups, you've got to at least land an attack or a guard break. If he's given something to open turtles or the defensive meta is changed, I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with, but until then, I feel pretty confident in putting him in B tier. Moving on though, we've got the Nobushi. Now, with the right player behind the controller, Nobushi is absolutely terrifying. Since they buffed her hidden stance or really just made it easier to pull off, I've been facing Nobushis that are a lot harder to take down, and the only reason I'm putting her in B tier is not because I feel that she's weak, but that, according to popular opinion, she's easily one of the hardest characters in the game to master and play effectively. I mean, anyone can do the heavy attack into kick, and you'll see it coming a mile away, but I've played against Nobushis with great reflexes that pull off mix-ups to leave your head spinning. If she keeps you at the end of her weapon, you're gonna have a bad time if you can't close the distance, which is why your footsies game needs to be immortal. Now, my speculation is that after the patch, she's gonna be the Warden killer. Anytime he tries to shield bash, it's gonna be Punish City, but we'll have to see what happens and where she falls after everything settles. Now, the last B tier character on our list is the Orochi. Just like pretty much any other character in the game, there are people that claim he's overpowered and those that claim he's barely worth touching because he's so weak. I'm kind of in the middle. To start, he's basically Warden Light. Fast zone attack, fast top lights, etc. The one thing right now that makes him truly formidable though is the zone flicker bug, which is about to get fixed. Once that goes away, I feel like playing Orochi successfully is gonna be a lot tougher. I do think though that if you're good at feinting and if you've got solid reflexes, you'll be okay as an Orochi player. The top light and the zone attack he does will still be difficult to punish just because of the sheer speed at which they come out. If Orochi feints, you've got to guess if the attack is coming top or right, similar to how playing against Warden is. Additionally, in 1.06, Hurricane Blast is getting a massive buff, which I've been told is very good news. This buff will make deflect very worthwhile and will allow for some mix-up games, so I think it's all gonna even out. With that in mind, we may even see Orochi move up on the tier list. And finally, coming in at C tier is the Conqueror and the Berserker. Now, let me note that C tier characters aren't exactly terrible, and to be honest, I don't even feel like C tier is the best designation. I almost feel like this should be like B- tier if I'm being totally honest. Anyway, playing these characters well is going to be vastly more difficult than any other tier, but also extremely rewarding if you can pull it off. First up in C tier, we have the Conqueror. Before his nerf in patch 1.05, the Conqueror was pretty much unstoppable. He really only had one move, but to be honest, it was so powerful that there wasn't really a need to do anything else. Post 1.05 though, that move, his shield bash, has been considerably nerfed into the ground, and aside from really solid defense, there isn't much Conquerors can do offensively, especially in a receiving end of a gank situation. I honestly think that the main problem with this character is his weapon design. Being the only character in the game that isn't able to feint is really strange, and instead of a flail, they should have given him a mace or Morning Star or something like that, but knowing that the Conqueror has to commit to every attack he throws puts him at a massive disadvantage in my opinion. And lastly for C tier, and the entire character list overall, we've got the Berserker. This is another character I spent a lot of time playing, and I can tell you that without a doubt, to win at a high level, you've got to play very well mechanically. Berserker has pretty much almost no tools to open up opponents, and he's one of the only characters in the game without an unblockable attack. Pair that with extremely slow heavy attacks and fairly slow light attacks, and you get a character that's very difficult to be successful with. Feints are pretty much your only tool to deal damage, and if you're playing against an opponent that can see through them, you're gonna have a very difficult time beating them. The one thing Berserker does have going for him though is his massive damage potential. He's actually the highest DPS character in the game right now, and if the defensive meta shifts to favor offense, he'll be the most overpowered character in the game. Unfortunately right now though, this isn't the world we live in, so we'll just have to see how it all pans out. I will note though that as of 1.06, he's getting back his out of stamina side into top heavy punish on knockdown, so at least he'll have that going for him. But that's pretty much my tier list, guys. Take it for what you will, and like I said multiple times in this video, this is all speculative and for entertainment purposes. I'm not saying your character sucks or that you should play this or that character. I just think it's fun to group things into categories based on personal experience, however subjective that activity may be. That being said, if you enjoyed or hated this video, don't forget to leave a like or dislike down below, and if you're new here, get subscribed so that you never miss any new content. I've actually got some exciting news on the way that I can't talk about yet, so stay tuned for more details on that. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to join the Discord below by clicking on the link in the description. Until next time though, I'm BouseFeenux, I'll see you at the next one, and as always, thank you so much for watching.